Simon Baker's featured directorial debut of the Tim Winton novel Breath is an evocation of a time in a young man's life in coastal Western Australia when the surfing bug takes hold and the world is full of beauty and promise. He's Pikelet, Samson Coulter, and his wild mate is Loony, Ben Spence, who is a tearaway, always pushing the boundaries. Pikelet's life outside his uninspiring but loving home life with father Richard Roxburgh and mother Rachel Blake is an attempt to create something out of the ordinary for himself. Then Pikelet and Loony meet up with Sando, Simon Baker, a dedicated surfer who also seems intent on pushing boundaries. He lives with Eva, Elizabeth Debicki, a former skier who's partly crippled from a serious accident. But it's in the ocean that the three intrepid surfers compete and form bonds. This is a most beautiful coming-of-age story, exquisitely told, with the most impressive performances from young Samson Coulter and Ben Spence, both of whom are actually really competent surfers, and so is Simon Baker, for that matter. But it's the way the film comes together, the cinematography of Martin Dean, who did all the land photography, and the stunning work by Rick Raffici, who shot the surfing scenes. Danny Cooper's editing is impeccable, and Harry Gregson Williams' score just adds to the whole. Tim Winton's voiceover is just the icing on the cake. It's so nourishing to see an Australian film this good. Graham.
Well, Margaret, I have to say I didn't like it quite as much as you did. I found it a bit evenly paced for my liking, and there was just a touch of, a group of people saying to themselves, we're doing something really important and really, as you say, nourishing here.
No, but
and it just left me... The first hour, in fact, just seemed like a documentary on surfing. There was just no kind of conflict, very little actually happening. I felt there could have been a bit more there, and the Sando character was just a bit kind of whitewashed. I'm not sure if Simon Baker was the ideal person to play it, even though he's a fine actor. But he was just a bit even. There wasn't excitement about him.
But there's meant to be an elusive quality to Sando. You don't know a lot of his background. I subsequently read the book, and it's so beautifully written. It's much gloomier, in fact, than the film. The film is really a coming-of-age story for Pikelet. And I was so impressed by the whole. I was so moved by the whole. You see an Australian film that really, does it for you, and I just celebrate. I love that part of our culture.
But it was just a bit too self-important.
No, it wasn't.
And Winton's own narration was a bit too elegiac and mournful. That could have just had a bit more life in it. The whole thing could have had a bit more bounce.
Stop it!
No, I'm sorry. I mean, I do think it was very well crafted, and he does show himself. We know he's a fine actor, Simon Baker, but he's obviously very good.
Well, he has directed before. He's directed television in America, yes.
Yeah.
So,
well, he knows about
he's
cameras.
Not a novice.
He knows about cameras. He knows about lenses. And
I imagine, Tim Winton actually giving him this novel to make was a big deal, and I can see why Simon connected with this. Look, I adore it. I'm giving it 4.5 stars.
I'll give it 4 for the craft.
You're right here, Pikelet. You're right here, right now. You got this, mate. You got this.
Simon, how did you get that connection with this production?
I was in California. Mark Johnson is an American producer, has produced a bunch of stuff, and kind of really an unlikely producer of a film like this. He gave me a call and he said, look, I got a chance of optioning this Tim Winton book called Breath. Have you read it? And I said, no. He said, grab a copy of it and have a read and call me. And I read it over 2 days, and, it chose me. It just sort of swallowed me up. I called him and said, I'm in. And then it sort of went from there.
But you were in as an actor, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in as an actor and to produce it with him.
How come the switch to taking that director's chair?
Well, I met with a bunch of different directors, with the two of us, and, it's interesting when you're so close to certain material, certain people, and I'd made a few films with first-time directors, and sometimes people would sort of lean like, oh, we need to create more drama for Pikelet at home. And I was like, that's not the point. You know, you're missing the point. So, and I kept trying to keep it on track. And Mark had said to me a couple of times, you know, you talk about this piece really well. Like, you talk about it like you're the director. And I go, yeah, am I scaring them off? And he said, has it occurred to you that maybe you should direct it? And I said, yeah, of course it's occurred to me, but I was waiting for the invitation.
And what about casting those boys? I mean, that is the most extraordinary thing, because they're both fabulous surfers.
Yeah, they're both fabulous surfers, and you know, what a surprise they turned out to be fabulous actors. You know, so they had the will and the courage to leap off and try something that was new, and to watch them, Margaret, every day come to set and see them grow in stature and strength and confidence was, you know, it was art imitating life. It was happening on the screen as it was happening on the set.
I mean, everything about the film seems true to me. And the surfing sequences, I think, are spectacular and true. And you had this cinematographer, Rick Raffici.
Yeah.
I mean, were they the most difficult scenes to film?
In hindsight, yeah, they were difficult. The potential for disaster was enormous. Shooting a film is difficult no matter what. You're at the mercy of so many different things. But to shoot on water and to shoot drama on water, not just pretty images, but there's story and there's context in all of those scenes on the water, was always going to be challenging. But the approach to it was very simple, and that helped us. And the approach was about being flexible and fluid, so that you can't manhandle the ocean. You can't make it do what you want it to do. So to be graceful with it and to understand that you're at its mercy was the best way to approach it. I mean, it's meant so much to me, this film, in so many ways. And I mean, there was a period of time when I was in the middle of, I was cutting it, and I said to my wife, Rebecca, I don't know if I'll ever be able to make another movie because I don't think I'll ever find something that I love as much as this.
How does it feel when it's that serious?
It's not about the thoughts in your head. It's about surrender. Surrender is what frees you up to be completely in the moment. To commit with your body and your soul, not a shred of doubt.